Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Europe is enduring one of the most intense heat waves on record, with temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius, record-breaking nights, and growing pressure on health systems, infrastructure, and water supplies. Some scientists claim that this extreme heat wave is, quote, virtually impossible without climate change. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss what is driving these unprecedented conditions is Dr. Joanna Remiszewska, an atmospheric physicist and chair of the Climate Council at the UN Global Compact. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello.
So we're seeing some statements, some scientists are saying that this heat wave could happen impossible without climate change. But realistically, what does that mean? The climate is changing and it wouldn't happen without climate change. What's the actual takeaway from this message?
That's an interesting question, and I really thank you for asking for that. As you know, climate change is a scientific fact, right? So everything what is happening and all natural phenomena, they are actually being strengthened by climate change. We are putting more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and that's why we are just heating up it. So there's more energy in the system. So just when we compare our human actions, when we put more energy into normal everyday's routine, it is becoming more unbearable for us. And this is this metaphor is also valid for atmosphere. We are just putting more energy, and everything what is happening right now, what is a natural phenomena, like the high pressure system, which actually, and they are traveling to us, and they are occurring over Europe and over Poland as well, every year. But now they are strengthened. As I said, we are putting more and more greenhouse gases. So, usually Poland, because we are here still in Warsaw, and it's interesting, that all our prognostic models, it's interesting also how valid they are, and we are going to validate them because, we have never predicted such high temperatures in our atmospheric models, meteorological models. So, usually we get heat from high pressure systems which are happening over Atlantic, and they are traveling across the whole Europe, and also from the eastern direction. So, it's something natural, but, we also have research saying that without climate change, without that extra energy we are putting into our atmospheric system, it could have been cooler. However, that sounds right now, when we are experiencing high temperatures, even now, we are still in the morning time. So it's very hot outside. So yeah, so just to summarize, natural phenomena, they are being strengthened. We are putting more energy, like, steroids to all the natural systems.
Right now,
plus, climate change also means that the weather patterns, they are constantly changing. Like, we used to get more air, especially during summer time, more air masses from Atlantic. They are usually, they are quite abundant with moisture, and and now we have more air masses coming from either from north or from south.
Right, so can you help us understand, because you mentioned the Prognosis model a while during our interview. Is this heat wave, is the temperature we're experiencing right now something that was predicted to happen, and did we expect it to be to this extent?
Yes, we of course we have expected them to come, like all those hot air masses, because we've got great in general, the supercomputing has put more computational power into modeling. So yeah, so we have experienced and we have expected that. But it's interesting because over Poland we do not get air masses, and we do not predict usually temperatures as high as 40 degrees. And now it's when you see something like that in your models, it's like, wow, is it really going to happen or not? So it will be also interesting from that standpoint. But but first of all, we have to be very careful because, as you said before, it's a huge stress being put on our public health, on environment, and on economy as well.
Right. Do you think that, be it the Polish system or Europe as a whole, is ready to tackle these sort of extreme weather and temperatures? Seeing that, like you mentioned, we do have prognosis model. We can sort of expect these sort of weather changes, even though we are looking at unprecedented numbers. Are we seeing preventive measures or steps being taken place by government across the continent to deal with these sort of issues?
Yeah, actually, we have to sort out all the actions we are undertaking right now. So, of course, we are not ready. Long story short, we are not ready. We are not doing enough to prevent climate change. Although we have to be aware that climate change prevention is like a marathon. It's not a sprint. Like one single action, one-time action doesn't change. Like 200 years of emitting greenhouse gases. So of course we are not on a good track. So probably we'll exceed 2 Celsius degrees of warming up at the end of this century. But the other side of this story is the way how we are adapting and mitigating climate change. And of course, Poland is we are experiencing right now the first heat wave during the summer. So heat waves in general over Europe, they occur earlier than they used to before. And and based on what we have seen so far in Spain or in France, the preventive measures are like, not like closing schools, like, all those warnings being released, but still, the infrastructure, in general, infrastructure is not ready. We as a human, we are not ready for such a high temperatures because, we are not designed for as high temperatures as we are experiencing right now. But it's really interesting to see, how actually, because I know that money talk. And usually when we speak about climate change, people are like, okay, it's just, a scientist's stories. But when they see, the influence on economy, that's something what of course, my heart is broken every time I hear that. But on the other hand, economy and money, they speak out louder than any scientist claims. So it's interesting how and actually we've got data. So there is an International Labour Organization. They actually did research, and by 2030. Globally, we are losing 2.2% of labor hours, which can be translated into 80 million, jobs. So that's something what we are losing because of heat waves, because of the lack of productivity.
Right. Now, going to that, it's actually something very interesting you brought up. A lot of times these environmental topics do clash with the economic incentives as well. And recently, we've already seen a lot of pushback when it comes to green policies. Do you think that this is going to be exacerbated by the current economic situation across the world?
Oh, it's a very complicated question. Probably we could have spent like hours, discussing and on that issue. Yeah, but in general, money talk, and we know and we do expect that climate policy and this topic will be very valid and will be put on the table during our upcoming or lasting campaign because next year we are going to have elections in Poland. So and climate policy and the way we tackle this issue, especially here in Europe, it's something that will be broadly and widely discussed. But on the other hand, we see research which and there is lots of research correlating like a green change, like and investing into green solutions. That this research, correlates the growth of companies with that solutions being implemented, but there is like this huge resistance, I would say, in our among our politicians to even say climate policy, energy transition, etc. But we know that as Europe we have to do that because we are fully dependent on fossil fuels. We do not have it here in Europe. So even the recent political situation in Hormuz, it's something it's so obvious that it's good to be independent.
Right. Of course, and it still takes a ways to get there. And according to current predictions, or looking at the current trajectory of the climate, the weather, can we expect the heat waves to be that bad in the coming years? How long do we have to kind of bear with this?
It's one of the, that was a sarcastic smile because that's actually the scenario which was written during late 80s, that heat waves and drought, associated with heat waves will become more unbearable for us. It will become earlier, it will last longer. And of course in Poland we are lucky enough, I would say, that due to our geographical position, we do not get heat waves as often as Western Europe does, like Spain, France, even Great Britain. Like Wimbledon was there were some technical difficulties, and what is also interesting that last week there's supposed to be a huge discussion about heat waves, and it was cancelled because heat waves in London. So it's, long story short, once again, the heat waves will hit us more often, and they will be they will last longer and they will come to us earlier. Once again, in Poland, as I said, due to our geographical position, sometimes we get it, sometimes we do not get it. However, statistics and data, they show that even in Poland, we observe more days with temperatures equal or greater than 30 degrees Celsius degrees, and with tropical nights. And so the statistics also shows that that heat waves and days with extreme heat are more often here in Poland too. Right. And they will be more often.
So if that's the case...
Plus in Poland, plus in Poland, we experience water shortages, and that's something what actually is because we can stay inside, right? Some business can be affected, but we have a big problem with water resources, which are really low, compared to average European water resources per one citizen. So heat waves and climate change will affect the most important resource we have and we need to survive here in Poland more,
All right, so last but not least, what are some of the ways that could help mitigate the situation, be it on a governmental level and also on an individual level?
Yeah, so adaptation policies, and of course, I'm not saying that it's not happening here in Poland, but we have to, it has to be higher on the political agenda, because we cannot build our economical growth without natural resources. That's obvious, and sometimes we tend to forget about it, and that's the main problem. And it should be like one policy set and being done for years. And here, in Poland, like the policy changes every government, so that's the issue. And when I speak with my colleagues from Nordics, for instance, that's something they do not understand. Like, if we have policy, we do realize it. And here in Poland, the policy is being set by one government, and that there is another one, and that the only, and the change is, it's being changed all the time. But still, we have to invest more into adaptation policies. Plus, because what's really dangerous in our forecasts, like after that heat event, we will be hit by cooler air masses, and we do expect more rainfall. And we know what flash floods mean for our cities. We are not ready for that.
All right, it does sound very alarming indeed. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your input.
But that's something what it's human-centric actually. The climate policy, and this is like a common misunderstanding of climate policies. Like it's just a human-centered policies, and and politicians and our opponents, they tend to forget about it.
Right. So I guess it's very important to bring that incentive up to the table as well. Thank you so much for your input and insight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.